Well, I've been more concerned with questions than I have with answers. And in my work, I really don't have any answers yet.
Everything inspired my father's work. Animals inspired him, the human form inspired him, the mountains, the sky, the clouds. His work came from everything.
He wanted to be an artist before I think he probably ever saw more than maybe just an incidental artwork. Way before he saw a museum, for instance. He had a lot to express, and it was like just an ongoing river of expression.
David Smith is one of the 20th century's most important sculptors. He was the first American to weld sculpture, and he had an enormous impact on the development of abstract art in the United States and around the globe. It's really been a dream of ours to make this exhibition possible at Yorkshire Sculpture Park. This comes on the tail of a number of really very significant monograph exhibitions that we've done, including Henry Moore, Isamu Noguchi and Joe Miro. For David Smith, having worked in the open air was really fundamental to how he developed his sculpture. For the majority of his working life, he had a studio up in upstate New York in a place called Bolton Landing near Lake George in the Adirondacks. And he would place the sculptures in the land around his studio and his house there. He called them his fields. And it was really important to how he thought about sculpture in relation to the weather, the light, the mountains, the trees.
His workshop was factory-like. It was very organized, and he kept it clean. He always whitewashed the floor so he could see his sculptures growing from the floor. And he would use his toe to knock pieces of steel into place and steady them, and then weld them together and make them upright. He had hoists and grinders and two kinds of welders, arc and acetylene. It was a very business-like, factory-like shop. And he called it the shop, not the studio.
We have been able to bring together sculptures which we're showing in the open air. It's a really wonderful opportunity for people to see Smith's sculptures, really in the conditions that he envisaged for them.
It's really wonderful to see the work in a different landscape setting, because I think that there's such a connection with nature in my father's work, and there always was. And in fact, the very earliest sculptures that he made were these little assemblages made from coral and rocks, and he took them outside and photographed them. So somehow bringing them outside seemed to be important even then in some really unexplored way.
Today's been quite emotional because we've taken the works out of their crates for the first time. And for me, looking at some of these pieces, they're works that I've looked at, when I was in my early 20s and a student. And it just seems amazing that they're here. Primo Piano is one of the late sculptures by David Smith. It's a large work where he's taken sheets of steel and welded them together, riveted them together in this quite geometric arrangement. All of those pieces of steel are pieces that he's found, and that's one of the very important features of David Smith's work. He's taking material from the workshops and industrial factories and all that kind of thing and bringing them into the studio. One of the most significant sculptures in the exhibition is called Hudson River Landscape from 1951. It's a loan from the Whitney Museum of American Art in New York. And for me, I've been looking at this work since I was a student, and it just seems so extraordinary that it's here in the underground gallery. And it's a beautiful work that's a kind of somewhere between an abstract sculpture and a story. And it's David Smith's journey from Manhattan to his place in upstate New York. In it you can see rivers, you can see lakes, you can see clouds, railways. The work that's called Untitled Candida is maybe the last sculpture that David Smith made before he died in 1965. It's, again, planes of steel, so flat pieces of steel that he's welded together, but in this case, they're stainless steel. And we've sited this work at the top of the Bothy Garden, where it overlooks this fantastic landscape. And it's almost got a painterly surface where he ground the steel, and it collects light and it kind of throws light out. So it's actually kind of much bigger than it really seems.
I love seeing them here. This is a beautiful sculpture park. It's an experiential sculpture park. I love the life here. And he loved life. I think he would have loved being here among the landscape and the clouds and the sun and the rain and everything, the changing light, the ever-changing light here.
It fits. I mean, it's the best place to see them, even though a whole lot of them don't really go outside. There's always that connection to nature.